What is happening in our relationships when we are not getting our emotional needs met? I mean, we're feeling bad if that's the case. We're feeling disconnected. And we can easily blame the other person for not showing up for us, but I do think that there are ways we get in our own way. And the great news about that is that there are things that we can do to try and get those emotional needs met. And we're going to talk about that in this video. I'm Stacy Rocklein, and I'm on a mission to eradicate loneliness. We do that one relationship at a time in each of our lives, and I think that at the root of it is needs being met. Because if our needs are met, then we'll feel seen, we'll feel supported, we'll feel cared for, and not lonely. So let's talk about things that get in our way. The big one is about other people, and that is that they either choose not to or aren't capable of showing up to meet our emotional needs. It's perfectly normal and wonderful to have emotional needs because it is what helps us make connections as we show up for each other. We all have them. So let's say you communicate them and it just doesn't happen. You know, that person doesn't show up for you. And that can be for a variety of reasons. It might be that they don't value what you're asking for. They don't think that your need is important. It could be that they just don't have the emotional maturity to do that. They just haven't learned how to show up for people. They're too focused on themselves or what's going on in their own lives. And so they're just not capable. When we have done all the stuff on our side of the street, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and the other person doesn't show up, it just could be because they choose not to or they're not capable. Now, that's okay, because one person doesn't have to be our everything. We can spread our needs around. There are some things that I'm going to bring to my husband, and there are some things I'm going to bring to my girlfriends. We have lots of relationships in our life, and we can get our needs met in different places. Now, it might be in this relationship, this is a deal breaker. Like, you need this person to show up for you this way in order to stay in the relationship, and that's totally okay too. But you may be able to just get your needs met somewhere else. So this is even if it's painful and makes you feel lonely, it is information. So that's about the other person. But let's focus on some ways that we get in our own way. We're going to talk about 5 different ways that I think that we get in our own way. And the good news is that we can work on some things here. So one might be that you have no idea what your emotional needs are. Like, you know, you don't feel good. You know, you feel disconnected. You feel lonely. You feel unseen, unsupported, uncared for in a relationship, but you haven't paused to do a little bit of examination to figure out what you need. So that's easy to fix. You're going to pick up a feel wheel. I'll leave a link to one right here. And you're going to name your exact emotion, like specifically, because if you have a specific emotion, like not, I just don't feel good, but I feel embarrassed, I feel sad, I feel angry, you know, if you can be specific about it, then you can chase it back to the source. And when you get to the source, you can see how in this moment or in the future, you have an emotional need that the other person can meet, and then you can describe it. So it could be that. Another way that we get in our way is that we may have conditioned ourselves to not have needs, and this is very normal. Unfortunately, you know, we have generations of people who as kids didn't get their emotional needs met. And so then they figured out, you just better not have any, right? No one's going to care for my emotions here. So I need to repress them or ignore them or push them away or whatever I need to do so that I can stay in connection with people and I don't push other people away. And so then they parent without meeting emotional needs of their kids because they didn't learn how to do that. And then this goes on and on and on. But I think we're doing a pretty good job right now of fixing this so that we don't keep passing it along. But that requires that we, you know, start to say, okay, I have emotional needs here. And we start taking that conditioned response of not having needs, of being in relationships and being like, no, I'm like an island. I'm in an emotional island and I can do this all on my own. I don't need anybody. Instead, we start to say, actually, wait, hold on a second. I do have some emotional needs and this person can meet that. So also fixable. Now, I'm going to talk about two different ones that are sort of similar but different. Let's say you've gone to a person repeatedly and you have asked for them to show up for you and they don't, over and over, or maybe even this has happened in multiple relationships. You may, one, start to think that you're not worthy of people showing up for you. Like, that's the narrative that you start to have, is that, look, I tried and nobody does, so it must be me. There must be some like lack of worthiness in me, and I just don't deserve people to show up for me. That's one way that narrative can get in the way of you expressing your emotional needs in the future. Or another way is that you know you're worthy. You're like, I do deserve people to show up. I just don't think they are going to, right? I just don't have faith in it. I don't trust that that's going to happen. And so you just don't even ask. So those are assumptions based on the past, which is, the way our brain works, but they can be disrupted and those narratives can be changed. And the last way is maybe you aren't communicating your needs. And we all do this, where we expect somebody to read our minds. Like they must know. It's obvious how they didn't show up for me before and how I need them to show up for me. And so I don't say anything. I just expect them to know. I'm definitely guilty of that one. Or I'll give like a little bit of information and expect them to kind of read between the lines. Like when we say something like, I'm so disappointed that this happened, but we don't say what we need. That's just a very vague, piece of information. So the person doesn't know what specifically to do. Or we try to communicate, but we haven't been specific enough about what we need. And so this is no problem. This is totally fixable. Again, this is just figuring out what your emotion is. So use the feel wheel. You can get that at the link to figure out what your emotion is, figure out what happened and what your specific need is, and then communicate it. We can't expect the people in our lives to just know, because we all want people to show up differently for us. Like someone might, really just need someone to be present. Another person might need a hug. We're all different, but we have to communicate clearly. So these are some ways that we get in our own way. That's the stuff that's fixable. We can examine our relationships and figure out who can show up for us, where we want to build these relationships, but we have stuff that we can do too. So make sure that you grab the feel wheel in case you want to lean into some of this work so that you're able to ask for people to show up for you, because this is how we're going to eradicate loneliness in our lives. Each of us, on our own in each of our relationships, and then collectively as a group, is by helping each other know how to show up for us, so that we feel connected and supported and cared for and loved. So we have to do the work that we can do and take the risk and be a little vulnerable to ask people to show up for us. And that's how we create our connections. So grab that feel wheel. Hope you find something in here that works. If we need to keep adding to this list and you've got another idea of a way that we get in our way of getting our needs met, make sure you put that in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Okay, I'll see you next time.